Now, I can let you tell her side of the story first, and then I can tell you the truth.
Okay, he goes, let's go out for dinner, and you choose a place. And I chose a place, and then he said, I don't like that place. We're going to go here instead.
She says I was wearing this hat that was down low. I had this jacket. I sat to the side with a slouch, as if like I was too cool to be there.
My name is Gilary my family is originally from Panama, which is a small country between Colombia and Costa Rica. My family immigrated to Canada when I was about 3 years old, so almost 32 years ago.
My name is Kamau Bernard. Most people within the community know me by my middle name, Talib. I was born in Scarborough boy. I've been married to my wife for a wonderful 7 years now. My background is, I guess, would be Afro-Canadian Indigenous. So my mother, on my mother's side, I am a 9th generation Canadian, and my father is Jamaican.
We met 10 years before we got married.
Yeah, at university at York. She was a very modeled human being who was doing some work canvassing for the YFS, the York Federation of Students. I was walking by with a friend, and she introduced herself to me and asked me if I was voting in the student elections. And that was our first introduction to each other.
Yeah, low-key I had seen him before and was like, I had my eye on, so this was ulterior motives. But yeah, I was very interested, but I don't think that either of us, the circumstances weren't ready for us to be together. 10 years later, a mutual friend of ours gets the idea in her head that we would be a good couple, and she approaches me about it first. And I tell her, Tendi, it's an idea that has crossed my mind, but I know that he's not interested, and honestly, I'm a different person now, I don't think it would work. And she said, no, I'm gonna ask Muhammad to ask him anyways, you should at least explore. And I was like, okay, whatever. So then when she came back to me to report back, she tells me, oh, he's not interested, Joe. Sorry about that. And I was like, yep, I know that he's not. They had a housewarming a few months after that incident, or that trying to set us up. And they invite both of us to the housewarming. Separately. So yeah. Muhammad invites him, Tendi invites me. I didn't know until I got there that Talib was gonna be there. And he shows up late. And
what do you mean I showed up late? You always tell these stories of me showing up late to dates when we were first meeting. Yeah. None of this stuff is true.
He shows up late.
None of this stuff is true.
We have a conversation where we're catching up. I haven't seen him in many, many years. And we have an argument. I assert that the argument was about whether or not boiled eggs was a good meal choice.
I think it was actually. This is what happened. I had said, and then it's possible. I was like, yo, when someone brought boiled eggs, and then I think it might have tipped off the fact that we're saying what's wrong with that? Yeah. And then I realized she's one of those people, right? So yes.
So we had this argument. It was a lengthy conversation about the legitimacy of boiled eggs. But in between that, we caught up. Mm-hmm. I remembered that his brother had a child, and I asked about that. I asked about his mom. Right. He remembered things about me because we had an on and off. I wouldn't say friendship, but an acquaintance for many years. Yeah. We were catching up, and I left that meeting. My sister was on the edge. How was that? Because she knew that I had feelings the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I was protective of myself. So I was like, he's loud. He has to be right. I think I said he's a Neanderthal. Those are the words that I use. He's
right.
Just loud.
Right. And then I left that experience with that is a very headstrong woman who is not afraid to express her ideas and opinions and be strong about them. And when she gets pushed back, to stand her ground. Yeah. So I was a little bit more progressive than she was back then, apparently.
So yeah, that was it. And then about a week or so later, he sent me a text message asking if he could take me out to a coffee. And
her response was, for what? What? What's the point?
Yeah.
And I was offended.
And he said, yo, it's just a coffee. It's not like we're gonna get married.
Yeah.
And I said, fair enough. But you know what? I'm a little tired of going into dates with people. And at that point, I had been actively pursuing different situations and they always fell flat, and it was just like a constant disappointment, a revolving door of disappointment. And that often I felt like from the beginning I knew that it wasn't going to work, but I dragged it on because of hope. So he was at the tail end of that. And so when he invited me for coffee, I said, we'll know immediately if it's going to work. And so if after that coffee it's not a thing, no hard feelings, we just walk away. And so that was the agreement. Our first date was good.
Yeah, it was good.
Was it
But
good?
essentially, I did ask her as a gentleman where she would want to go. And unfortunately, her pick was not very good. So for the sake of our marriage, I decided that I was going to change the location. And it was a nice location. It was a nice little restaurant. And I remember coming, appropriately on time. Probably like 5-10 minutes late. But there was no saunter. There was no air about me.
Definitely was.
It was just someone who was out and confident. That's what it was. It was confidence. That's what it was. She thought there was some airs about me, but there was.
It was very clear to me that this was it after that first date.
Mm-hmm.
I think the conversation was really honest. Even up to this day, we don't agree on everything. In that conversation, we didn't agree on everything, but it was still respectful. I felt seen. I felt like, I don't know, it just felt like natural. It didn't feel like I was being somebody other than myself. I didn't feel like I needed to put on a show. It just felt different from any of my other interactions.
Personally, for me, it was our second date, which was at a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
And because both of us at that time had kind of been through the whole, show and dance, trying to get married with other people, and I guess you can say wasting your time, but it's a process, right? So like we both were there with very specific questions. Like, of course, it was enjoyable, like there was, the kind of banter to kind of like get to know each other in a more, I guess, superficial way, or, just like, having fun and enjoying the company. But we also were like, we had specific questions that we wanted to ask each other because we both had a desired purpose from the interaction. And I think what I appreciated was like your honesty and your frankness, like kind of like right to the point. And then that's when I left. Actually, I literally told her, like, at the end of when I was walking her home, I was like, yo, listen, I'm ready to go. So just let me know when you feel the same.
I think for me, it was just refreshing to find somebody that was on the same page. And at that point, we hadn't talked about that we were going to approach every date like it was a job interview. And like, that takes the romance out of it. It was a romantic process to me because I think it just showed that he had really thought about what he was bringing to the table, what he wanted out of himself as a spouse, what he wanted out of a relationship, who he wanted as a wife. Like, it was refreshing to find somebody else who had spent time actually thinking about what they wanted out of a marriage.
4 weeks later, we were engaged. And then 5 months later, we were married.
Hi, my name is Farheen, and I'm 25.
My name is Mustafa, also 25.
My family's from India, and his family's from Pakistan. We have a little pet, that's all, no kids. Little cat.
We met in high school in grade 9 as friends. And we were friends all throughout high school. Never got serious until like much later.
My first impression was just like, oh, he's just one of my friend's friends. Mustafa wore this like purple shirt and these like denim cargo pants. So like, I kept talking about like all the time because like that was like the first like image of him that I remember. But yeah, that's true. Because we were so young, we never thought about it that deep in our first impression. So our first impression was just like, okay, that person's cute, I want to be that person's friend. Like that was about it. And then after high school, we kind of went our separate ways into university. So we didn't really talk much. In like third year university, we reconnected and like started talking again. And then we were like, okay, like, we could take this somewhere. So like, let's talk about it seriously. And then once it was kind of like serious, we like introduced it to our parents and then went from there.
We had a really like big, like a coincidence. I couldn't even believe it. I was in 10th grade where, I did kind of have a crush on her even then, but as like just like a typical high school crush. And then, so I think she was going to New York to see her family. I was going to New York to see my family.
Yeah, we both went with like our own separate family. I went with my mom and my aunt.
Yeah.
And you went with like your whole
And New York's a pretty big state, so like it was like, you know what I mean? And then we ended up like, I think we were on the way back.
And back then we didn't have like, we weren't texting each other. I mean, you had a phone, I didn't have a phone. Maybe I did, but like there was no like texting for like, hey, what are you doing? Like what are
we basically bumped into each other in New York at like a service station, like random, like on the
Yeah,
way.
it was so awkward and like random.
I was just like the odds of that
what's going
happening.
on?
Like the odds of that happening are like zero. Like how's that possible with like so many people at this right moment, right time? So I thought of that as okay, like this is a sign, right, for me. So then honestly I was like, all right, well, my fate's already been decided. So when we started talking again, then I said, yeah, okay, like I want to get married to her. I think it was when we first reconnected, and like, it was random. I think it was third year. We also had mutual friends that were in University of Waterloo. So she was there, and I went with some of my friends. We ended up the same night, and then we realized, oh, we're there. We haven't seen each other in like years or whatever. Let's just like let's just say hi. And then you see the person after like that you spent a lot of like high school with. That was your close friend. You had a lot in common. And then you kind of, I think we both felt it then at that moment. I think we hung out for like 5-10 minutes, and it's like, oh, it's like really nice like seeing you, right? And then we wanted to hang out more, and then that's kind of how things got serious after that.
Yeah, that was like my, like when you know moment too. We kind of talked here and there in the middle after graduating from high school and going to university, but we never really like talked. So there was a lot like that we missed out on from each other. Like I kind of missed his company, he missed my company, or like just like knowing what's up and like the way we talk to each other and stuff like that. Like I feel like I realized I missed those things when we reconnected. I'm like, at that moment,
it's kind of like a slap. It's kind of like a slap in the face, like when you finally see that person again after like a long time. It's like, oh, like I didn't even realize this was missing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My name is Jilan Nasher, and this is my husband, Kris Ali Trotman. I do not take his last name.
I can introduce myself today. I'm not your son.
Anyways. Oh my god, yo, you have so much like lint all over yourself.
Yeah, this is my mom, Jilan Nasher. She likes to wipe stuff off my eyelashes, face. Trinidadian and Venezuelan.
And I am Ethiopian and Arab. Okay, we've been married since 2014, so that
you do the math. We don't know
6
how to do math, even though I'm
6 going on 7 years.
Yeah, that was longer.
We met on T.Wire on the internet. It was this website. It was called T.Wire. This is really embarrassing.
The old TikTok.
I think I was like 17, and he's 1 year younger than me, so he was 16.
She likes them young.
Anyways, we physically met a year later. We met up at Kennedy Station. We went to the movies. Yeah, it was a year later.
Damn, it was a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just sitting on my MSN for the longest time. I'm like, yeah, maybe next week.
Yeah, we didn't really talk to each other for a whole year. We just we tried talking once on the phone, and I didn't really like him. So I was like, I'm not talking to this guy anymore. But then a year later, we reconnected, and then that's when we physically met up. And he was like 2 hours late. So he lived in the West End and I lived in the East End, and we didn't have a car, so he had to bus it all the way to my end basically. But then when I saw him, I was like, ooh, he looked like Chris Brown. But anyways, so we went to the movies, and when we got to the movies, we just watched the movie. I can't remember what movie it was.
It was Evan Almighty.
Oh, okay. And then after the movie, we hung out for a very long time getting to know each other, because the beginning was kind of awkward. And then after the movie, everything was cool. And yeah, it was like, he was my best friend.
My first impression was, damn, that girl fine. But when she smiled,
oh my god,
I was like, yeah, she's still fine.
I think the moment that I knew that he was the one was 2 weeks after our relationship, when we were talking for like hours. And then after we got off the phone, I think it was like 3 a.m. And then he called me back, and I was like, oh man, what happened? He called me back, and he's like, I just wanted to say I love you. You remember that? That's when I was like, this guy's the one. Don't lie. He always pretends like he always pretends like he did it.
She said she loved me first.
Wallahi, I didn't.
She called me on day 1
I
and said, listen, baby, I know it's only been a day, but I love you.
I'm actually surprised that we ended up together. Like, I didn't think it was gonna happen.
With a child.
Like married, living together with a child. Like, I never thought it was gonna happen, to be honest.
Keep it down in there. We're having an interview.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Munir. I'm from India. My family is Tamil and I grew up in Calcutta. My first language, therefore, is Tamil, but I also speak Bengali, Hindi, and English.
Hello everyone, my name is Aliya. I was born and raised in Dubai. Been here 10 years, married to Munir for 10 years. Originally, my parents are from Gujarat in India. And so, yes, I speak Gujarati. I've also learned a lot of Tamil living with Munir. We also know a little bit of Arabic and English.
We have one daughter, Mariam, who's 8 years old, and we have a son, Zizan, who just turned 16 months.
Yeah, we met online on one of the matrimonial sites. And yes, we just scrolled through each other's profiles. We established that, we were a good match for each other in terms of the initial screening process. And we took it on from there. We had roughly a 3-month period of talking and chatting with each other, but our parents were involved from the day one. And yes, and then as soon as we decided that we were compatible with each other, we agreed to get married, and within 6 months of having a conversation, we were married, alhamdulillah.
Like men are, I think, more visual creatures. So I liked her picture. And I was like, oh, she lives in Dubai. She's probably not going to say yes, but what's the harm? Let me say hi and see what happens. And so I dropped her a note, and then I actually forgot about it. But the next morning, I suddenly found this response, and it was like, oh, I didn't expect that. So that's how we started the conversation. But and it went very quick. Like within a few hours, we were already comfortable exchanging numbers. I was making long distance calls to Dubai and talking to her. And I think that it was, we clicked instantly at that level, and we knew very soon that we wanted to take this forward and see how things go. I didn't put too much thought into what criteria we match. I just felt I went with the flow.
I think the most important thing was that we were in agreement with the fact that we were both there to not fool around. We were looking for seriously to get married, and should this work, it would be it would go in the direction of marriage. But otherwise, we would just give it a few days. We decided on actually a timeline as to when we would decide whether we are compatible with each other or not. So I think we were both very clear on that right from day one.
Yeah,
and
for
I think
sure.
that made the decision making and everything very easy, right?
Yeah, I would say it was very organic. That's all I
Yeah.
would say. We didn't need to have to put pauses and rules to what date we need to stop. I think it just went very organic and with the flow, and worked out well, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
We are still together in 10 years.
So when I first met, I thought he was a very, very well-spoken guy who had a solid. I think he had a very solid value system.
I still do.
Of course. But that was something that set you apart, and that was something that I was also looking for in a spouse. I did have a basic checklist of what I was looking for in a spouse, and he was very well spoken, extremely. Even now, he's very well spoken, so he can talk his way out through any situation. So I like that fact, and of course the strong ethics and the value system that he holds, it reflects in the way in which he behaves with others, in which he presents himself. So I think in general, those were the two things that really stood out when I met him first, and I think those were very positive impressions for me.
Yeah, for me, I think that I think you have very nice eyes.
Thank you.
No, but I think that they're very expressive. I think that you can read by a person's expressions, and her eyes are very honest and direct. So I could feel that, I could already sense that there's a little bit of transparency and openness to her, and she wasn't shy to look and talk to me straight up. So I like that. She was not at all overawed by the occasion, or sometimes women can be a little withdrawn. But I didn't find that in Aliya. She was very clear on what she wanted, and that showed on her face and on her expressions and eyes.
We were brought up in a certain value system, and of course, being Muslims, they had certain basic criteria that, my preference of spouse would be who would be of a religious Islamic background, believing and practicing Muslim. Other than that, I do not think there was any other criteria that was imposed upon us directly, imposed on me directly by my parents. They were very open to looking for the right match, and so was I. So I think that made things very easy in terms of, because I had a very broad base to work with. So they gave me the independence and the flexibility, which normally a lot of girls or a lot of children actually in our culture, all of them don't get it, because we usually have the customs and traditions are to marry within a certain sect or a culture or a community within the Muslim community of India. So within my community, people would get married to somebody with the same surname. Generations after generations, people have been doing that. I was fortunate, I was lucky to not have that kind of restriction. I had a lot of options to work with, and alhamdulillah, I'm happy that I got to meet him that way, because he's absolutely from a very different part of India than us, and alhamdulillah, it's been good.
When I first met Aliya, I did find that we had a lot of commonalities, although we were from different backgrounds. We truly were liberal and not held back by any archaic belief systems, or we were truly multicultural. We had friends from different cultures and backgrounds. We grew up amongst people, and we were very accepting to different people's beliefs systems. So we did have that in common, and we also believe that we didn't want to live in a society which would be restrict us based on community or caste or culture, and we wanted to have a future where our children would be in the same boat, and we wanted to be children who were truly global and multicultural in their thought process.
Other than that, it was just boiling down to how compatible we are, and how we would interact with each other, and how we would coordinate with each other, how we would on a daily basis be with each other. I think it just boiled down to that, right?
So you're the one lady. That's the bottom line. I wouldn't say that the moment I saw her, it was like she was the one. But as we got talking and as we clicked at one level at a time, we did realize that we are compatible, and we'd make a good couple. Yeah. And we went towards that, and it worked fine.
Yeah, I think
so if you say there was a moment, then it would be just when she walked down the aisle in her bridal wear. I was like, okay, I'm locked down.